So what we're going to do is we're here to expose it, let people tell their story, and let everybody in the public see the horrors of the court system in Suffolk County, New York.
Long Island Backstory with Chief Correspondent Gary Jacobs.
Hi, I'm Gary Jacobs, and welcome to another edition of Long Island Backstory, where we film at the Cablevision Studios in Hauppauge, New York. My next guest, I've been trying to get this guy on the show for a while, but I know he's a very busy man, and we finally nailed him down. Although I'm not involved in education in my real life, I manufacture pet supplies, and I'm an advocate for family law reform and Presidents of Americans for legal reform. But having raised 3 children here on the island, I do have some insight into our educational system. I also travel a lot for business, not only across the United States, but all over the world, and I've spent months and months in Asia. When I ran for office a few years ago, Common Core was a big issue, and I was asked about Common Core a lot. My feeling towards Common Core was, and still is, that we should always try to improve our educational system, of course, but we should be mindful that in America, we really turn out the best people in the world. We create the best companies in the world. We have the best inventions in the world. We have more Nobel Prizes than anywhere else in the world. We cure diseases. Our adults are happy, and we're taught to do what we like and what we love, and hopefully most people end up doing what they love and therefore succeeding in it. Yes, when I go to China, I do meet some people that are really freaking smart. But to me, they're computers. They have a lot of knowledge in their head, but they don't learn to think outside the box. And what I always thought was special about our system in the US is that growing up, we would cater our educational system towards the needs. If somebody was good in art, we would push them towards art. If kids were extremely brilliant, we wouldn't want them to get bored, so we'd put them in accelerated classes. If people learned slower, we would put them in classes where they learn slower. Now it just seems like it's all one big thing. We all have to get a test, and we gear everything towards testing. But in my opinion, testing isn't everything, and we're going to get my guest's opinion on that. So I've been hearing a lot about our next guest, Dr. Michael Hynes, and from many different sources, including many teachers in his school and many people who have students in his school district. And this guy is just unbelievable. All I hear about is all these amazing things, and I wanted to hear it directly from him. I was just going to give a little bit of a short bio. I had to cut it back because you're very well accomplished. Public school superintendent of schools here on Long Island. It's his mission to spread the importance of holistic approach to educating children. Dr. Hynes is an innovative public school advocate and university lecturer, and has made contributions regarding the importance of play and recess in the schools, as well as yoga and mindfulness in the classroom. He's also published numerous articles and featured in numerous podcasts on school leadership. Dr. Hynes received his undergraduate degree in psychology from Bethany College and his doctorate degree in education administration from Dowling College. Dr. Hynes has undergone professional training and learning in schools and leadership and programs in New York University, Stony Brook University, and Harvard University. So, Dr. Hynes, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
First question, just give us a little bit of background. Where are you from? Where were you raised?
Sure. Background is I grew up right here on Long Island in Sayville. Actually, interesting enough, I just bought the house I grew up in.
Wow.
I escaped Sayville for quite some time. I moved back. I have 5 children, a beautiful wife, and I'm very fortunate to be where I am. And as you know, I work in Patchogue, Medford as a school superintendent, so I just love Long Island, and I love the students that I serve.
Question, what is your feeling on state testing?
I have quite a few feelings about state testing, so I don't want to take the whole program to talk about it, but I think right now, back in the day when I was teaching in the 90s, we focused on 4th grade testing, 8th grade testing, and then we had the Regents exams. Now, because of No Child Left Behind, which is now defunct and it moved to something else, ESSA, as of December of last year, it's mandated 3 through 8 testing in both ELA and math. It's actually more seat time spent to become proficient in 3rd grade than it is to take the bar exam.
Wow.
It takes that long for a 9-year-old to take an ELA and a math exam, and they have to do that in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We don't get the results until the end of the summer when it's too late, when the teaching is over, and that's supposed to drive our instruction. So I don't have a very good perspective as far as testing right now.
But is the testing, when I was raised, and I guess I'm a little bit older than you, but we were raised on the island, and they tested. I think it was to see if we were grasping what they did, and if we weren't getting it, say, hey, we're doing something wrong. Nobody in the class passed the test. Now it seems that the testing is to get funding, to judge the teachers.
Yes.
Did the whole reason for testing change?
It did. It actually did change. So, you know, back in the day when I was in school in the 70s and 80s, we took the IO exam. It took about an hour. You know, it focused on whatever deficits you had, and then life moved on. Right. Now, there are so many strings attached, as you said. So yes, schools are actually designated whether they're passing or failing schools, and there's monies attached to that at both the state and federal level. And then actually we're tying student scores to teacher performance. And we know how many variables go into that when it comes to as far as how teachers are and how students fare. So once that happened, it changed the total landscape as far as how we perceive teachers and students. And for me, that narrative has to change.
I mean, if I'm a teacher and they're doing that, I would say, I don't want the slow kids in my class. And I think you also see a lot of people who say, you know, listen, growing up, we knew who the hyper kids were. You know, they were jumping around, they were a little bit out of control, but now everybody wants to be on Ritalin. And I think part of it is the teacher says, look, we do know if you put the kid on Ritalin, he's going to behave, and he's going to probably do better on testing. Yeah. So the teacher wants the kids on Ritalin. You know, I'm just talking in generalities, but I don't want I don't want to teach in a bad district, and I don't want to have the bad kids in my class. If I get a kid who's acting up a little, I want him out because he's going to screw up my testing.
Yeah.
Is that a problem? I mean, listen, and I was one of those kids who wasn't so good.
Well, listen, I think you and I were both probably in the same boat because when I was in high school, I was disenfranchised. So if you're a disenfranchised student, if you're a student who learns at a different speed or a different rate, yeah, I mean, you're behind the 8 ball when it comes to then teacher performance. And it does make teachers on edge, to be honest with you. And right now, the Regents, they're looking to do a few things to tweak that right now. But yeah, I mean, when you have teachers and they're teaching to the test, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, if everything we do in the classroom is geared toward that test in April, May, or June, then you lose the joy of learning, and you certainly lose the joy of teaching.
Absolutely. I mean, we hear about, I mean, I have nieces and nephews,
sure,
and we hear about them coming home, how upset
absolutely
they are because the teachers put pressure on them because if they don't do well, it's a reflection on the teacher. The parents are upset about it, and it's just the school district doesn't really want these kids, I'm sure, bringing down their scores. Sure. So you're under pressure. It's just it's putting a burden on these kids.
Well, it's a vicious cycle, and you know, ultimately, if the eye and the prize and the thing we're here to do is serve children, it's not meeting the needs of our kids. And what as you said, you're seeing kids now, and there's a host of things that I guess focus on this. Kids are more anxious, they're more depressed, they're more inclined to drop out of school, and that certainly has taken place in a much higher rate since No Child Left Behind came about in early 2000s.
And I'm going to jump. I'm going to jump a little bit because one of the questions you said the kids don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And when we went to school, we used to play outside, sure, have recess, and see our friends. But now there seems like there's not as much time for that anymore. And if you take away the enjoyment of learning, not just school,
sure,
the enjoyment of learning, and I see that happening. And one of the things that really caught my attention, I have friends who have students in your school, and they say, "Oh, Dr. Hynes, he's concerned about recess, and he wants. How do you have recess? You can't even. There's no time for it anymore." And they said, "No, but he knows. So I know you take this holistic approach. Tell me how important it is for the kids to have fun in school.
Sure, actually,
enjoy being there."
Well, that's the thing. I mean, ultimately, what I found over time is that you have lots of students, and parents would certainly say this, especially at the elementary level, where school is not fun, and that to me is criminal. So what I do is I shadow students for the full day, K through 12. So in each grade, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, I'll take a full day, and I will, you know, I call it like I'm like a stalker. I'm like their best friend, and I go through the whole day with them. And last year, when I shadowed some students, I realized students went outside, and by the time we, you know, set up for a kickball game or to play stickball, whatever it was, we had to go back inside. Right. It was 10, 15, 20 minutes, and what I found was you had kids going back into class, and they didn't get to expend their energy, they didn't get to socialize, they didn't get to make all these different connections and have fun, and they come back to class and they're not ready to learn. So part of my decision making with our Board of Education was to say, you know what, we're going to actually double recess, we're going to have lunch for 40 minutes, we're going to have recess for 40 minutes, and we're going to make that a real focus for kids to be socially and emotionally engaged. And I'm going to tell you right now, as far as this year so far, we have seen a decrease in school discipline referrals. We've seen actually an uptick of students coming to school and enjoying it. And to be honest with you, when I meet with students now and I talk to parents, they actually say school is fun again. And when it's not fun, I don't care if you're an adult or if you're a child, you're not going to learn anything.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting. You mentioned the socialization, and I know we talk about going to college, and I always say, it's good to go away to college. Even if you're not college material, you may not do it, but you get that social experience. And I didn't even think about the elementary and the middle school social experience, but that's part of growing up and learning the interaction. But if you have, the time between classes is 4 minutes and you have just enough time to run to your class, which my kids had, they went to Smithtown, this big school. They had just enough, they didn't even have a chance to catch up with their friend in the hall.
Absolutely.
They didn't get a chance to talk with each other. So when they go home, they do it on Facebook and on Messenger, but they're losing that. The only time that they would really have a chance these days to have face-to-face interaction would be in school, and we're taking that away from them.
Taking it away.
What's the harm? I mean, you have a degree in, I guess, in psychology, you have training in psychology. What is the harm? I mean, that can't be good for people to not learn in those formative years how to interact, even if it's arguing.
I agree.
Disagreeing about things.
Sure.
How do you take it away? They don't learn it.
They don't. Those lifelong skills, and I totally agree with you. On the playground, you learn about life in a lot of different ways, how to resolve issues, how to work with other people. And when you take those opportunities away from kids, and that has happened since 2000, those opportunities have been diminished. And the byproduct is you have young adults now that don't know how to resolve conflict.
Well, we hear about a lot. They say, everybody wins, and then that's where these people end up committing crimes because they don't know how to lose. They can't take rejection. But at least when we grew up, we didn't have this massive amount of homework when we got home. No. I mean, I would go home and we played till it got dark. I'd come in and do my half hour or hour of homework. Sometimes, actually, I probably didn't even do my homework half the time, but I still graduated.
I won't say anything.
Teachers knew that the homework, you're supposed to do it, but the kid didn't do it. But I was playing. Now the kids go home, they do their homework. Sometimes it takes them until the evening, and then they go on their computer. They don't socialize.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. So when I was shadowing high school students, and this is what really blew me away, and it's something that I think schools really need to consider. Their day starts at 7:15, 7:30 in the morning. Now,
teenagers do not like getting up in the morning.
No, they don't. they really don't. And the research shows that. They're not actually really ready to function until 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So when they're going through a whole day, many of our students, and not just where I am, but universally, they skip lunch. They take a class in lieu of lunch. And so they'll go through the whole day without lunch. Then they'll play a sport or join a club. Then when they get home around 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, they have 4 or 5 hours of homework. And then they're going to bed, and then they're getting up at 4:30 in the morning, and they're doing it all over again.
That's not a fun life.
That's not a fun life. And to be honest with you, that's not preparing them for anything except, I think, to be more anxious and in some cases to be depressed. So we need to find some balance.
And we're looking, and that's for the kids who are good students.
That's right.
There's the other kids who just aren't a good student, don't like the schoolwork, and we used to have programs for them and say, all right, this guy's not going to go to Harvard, he's not going to, but you know what, first of all, a lot of people who own big companies didn't go to college. They are very successful and happy, but I think we're sort of taking these kids who aren't smart and they're just saying, you know what, I'm too stupid to do anything.
I agree with you, and so we have lots of kids who are disengaged. This is the pattern that we see, I think, traditionally in schools. Most students or children love the elementary experience. You're with one teacher the whole day, lots of relationship building. They get to junior high or middle school now. Their light switch in the back of their mind starts to flicker if they don't feel that school is relevant for them, or if they're becoming disengaged because they're struggling in some way. And by the time high school hits, their light switch is pulled out of the wall socket, and you have kids who don't think that school is relevant or they're good at what they do. And that's where BOCES comes in, career and technical education comes in. That is a life saver for a lot of our kids, but a lot of schools can't afford to have their kids go to something like that for 2 years because it's very expensive. It adds up.
Right. What about inclusion? I don't even know what inclusion was when I grew up. We had kids, they call them SPEDs, and I don't know if that was good because they felt like they were labeled as a special education student. And me, that's what I do. It's sort of in life. I always feel like I have to take care of the underdog. So I have a special spot in my heart for people with learning disabilities, and you know, and I want the best thing. I want them to be happy.
Sure.
Is this inclusion? Is this a good idea?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think inclusion is a great idea, especially for students with special needs. So I have 5 children at home. One of my children has Down syndrome. So at some point when she gets to be of age to go into kindergarten, I would love to have her, and she will be, in an inclusive setting. Because I think both sides learn a lot. I think that's very important. And then, of course, that we tailor the needs that a student has. They're learning not only cognitive skills, but they're learning other skills, social, emotional skills as well. So most school, if not all school districts, have inclusive settings. They also have self-contained settings for students who have more significant needs. But that inclusivity of whether it's students with special needs or, you know, for students who have English as a second language, those types of opportunities are paramount for kids to succeed.
Yeah. And I tend to agree that the other kids may get more
Absolutely.
out of it, learning how to deal with people who may not you know, function the same way and that are different. We learn different.
We do, because we are all different.
And we should treat them with you know, we learn to treat them, hopefully become friends.
I agree.
With some of these special needs you know, children. What about Common Core? I know this could be a whole half-hour show on Common Core, but we'll try to do it in a couple minutes.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, Common Core, the standards, you know, there's a couple different, I guess, edges to Common Core, but when you try to standardize national standards, per se, the needs of students regionally certainly differ across not only New York State,
within even
but
Long
across
Island.
Exactly, even Long Island. So for me, standards are important, but it's not the end-all and be-all as far as what students actually need to perform well in the classroom. And I think Common Core has such a bad taste in many people's mouths right now. Right now, what the regents are doing, what the commissioner is doing, they're looking to revamp the standards. They're rebranding the standards, and they should have something new coming out in the very near future. But I'm going to tell you, developmentally, especially at the elementary level, they were significantly inappropriate for kids, where you have kindergarten students, first grade students, you're asking them to do things that they're just not developmentally ready to do. So I'm glad New York State is taking a step back right now.
Good. What do you think about the State Department of Education?
Okay, well, I know I can't curse online. You know, it's interesting. They're understaffed, so I want to put that out there ahead of time, because they're already behind the 8 ball as far as serving their community at large, because they don't have enough people doing what they're supposed to do. But I have to say, if you look at the State Education Department in its totality, as far as all the different mandates that come from there, they handcuff school districts, I think, significantly. And I would love to see some of those mandates actually lifted at some point. I think our commissioner, who came from Florida, she was a firm believer in the Common Core standards. I think what she's trying to do right now as far as state tests and looking at curriculum and trying to align everything, I think she's having a rough go, but she's making her best effort moving forward to meet with everybody. I love our new chancellor, Dr. Betty Rosa. I think she's doing a great job. She gets it. She was in the education field. She's a former superintendent in New York City, so she gets it. But as far as the State Ed Department, I'm just not a big fan.
So how much can you do locally? I mean, we pay administrators a lot of money locally, and I sort of thought with all these rules, you really can't do anything. But like you said, you did increase. You were able to increase your recess and maybe at times. So how much leeway do you have locally to say, hey, I don't like the way this is going, guys. I want better for my Patchogue Medford students.
Sure.
Do you have leeway, or do you just have to follow the books, the mandates, and that's it? The day is filled.
It's interesting. You know, it's almost like a school budget. 98% of it's already fixed, and you have very little flexibility when it comes to a school budget. I think when it comes to the school day, when you have students for 6 hours and change, I think there are some things, of course, that you have to do that are mandated, but there are certain things that you can do that you do have leeway. And it depends on what the superintendent's core values are, what the Board of Education's core values are. For us, the hills that we were going to die on was social and emotional well-being for our kids. So we took that leap of faith, and we thought this was going to be in the best interest. And I think other school districts can certainly do that, amongst other things, if they felt it was in the best needs of kids.
Right. So when I ran for office, one of the big issues was money.
Yeah.
And everybody said, well, you look at the budget, all of our money goes to education. And everybody always says, well, look, that's the most important thing. That's why Long Island's so special. And I did actually used to believe that. But I remember a few years ago, I think it was Cory Booker in Newark. Yeah. He said the reason our kids are not doing a good job is because we don't pay our teachers in Newark enough money. So the good teachers all go to Long Island. So he gave all the teachers a big raise, and the test didn't change at all. So there's obviously not a correlation between paying teachers. I mean, obviously we want our teachers to be paid well. We want to attract. They should be they are taking our kids, in their hands. So we know that. But we spend so much money educating people, and I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe you're one of these people that's in there, but we have so many layers. We have principals, we have vice principals, we have superintendents, so many layers, but they're not really affecting the children. Tell me I want more teachers so there's less kids in my class. I'm okay with that. Okay with that. But do I need all these administrators that are costing us hundreds of thousands of dollars and they're not touching my kids? Or are they behind the scenes and I don't realize it?
Yeah, I think it's the latter of what you said. Because we have so many mandates that come down from state education department, there are lots of ancillary things from a paperwork standpoint, from as far as reports that we have to generate, that administrators have to do. So I think from that standpoint, there is certainly a function. I think as far as, when you have a superintendent, when you have assistant superintendents, when you have principals, they're mandated by education law. So
really?
Interesting.
I didn't know.
You need to have
we would say you need somebody in charge of the school, obviously.
You do.
But how many layers under them do you need?
Well, and that's the thing. Most elementary schools don't have assistant principals. Traditionally, junior highs or middle schools and high schools, they have assistant principals. And most of the time, they work on scheduling. Sometimes they serve more than one role, aside from being an administrator. I think when you look at the overall school budget and when you look at administrative costs, usually there's a formula where they don't exceed X amount, and it's not as much as people think. However, there are 126 school districts on Long Island, and if you go down south, you'll see regionally they'll have like Charlotte, Mecklenburg. They have one big county system, and they have multiple district superintendents within that county, and then layers upon there. But should there be a Suffolk County school district? Should there be a Nassau County school district? That debate has been raging for quite some time. But from what I understand, and I don't think I'm wrong when I say this, if we consolidated school districts, would we really save that much money? And the reports that I recall seeing and hearing about, there's really not that much savings. As far as superintendents are concerned, listen, we do get compensated well. There is no doubt about it. It's a privilege to serve the community. It's a 24/7 job. I mean, I pretty much sleep with my little phone on the side. I tuck it in bed at night because anything can happen at any time. But I will say this as far as teachers and the teaching profession, and I really mean this with all my heart. I think it's the best job in the world, and if you're doing it the right way, it's the most taxing, most emotional, and most rewarding job. I shouldn't even say job, profession there is, because it's a calling for most teachers.
Absolutely.
And so, to me, I put them up there with doctors. I put them up there with the right attorneys. I put them up there with everybody else who I think goes to school and touches the lives of other people.
I mean, listen, you're not going to get rich being a teacher. You know what your max basically is going to be. You make a good living.
You do.
But my sister's a teacher and she lives it. I mean, with her lesson plans, I think it's gotten more now. The lesson plans and the work, true. And as you said, the writing the letters, emails to the parents and keeping everybody. We do ask for a lot. I mean, so they should be compensated well. I don't think really people complain. It's just the stuff that you don't see.
It is, and that's the thing, because a lot of people, it's like an iceberg, right? You see the top 10%, you don't see the 90% underneath. Right. And it's the same thing what happens within the schoolhouse. I think schools need to do a much better job as far as a PR machine, telling the community all the great things that are taking place inside, because it's almost like a secret in some way.
Right.
So we need to do a better job of doing that.
We don't have too much time left, but I want to talk about something that I'm passionate about, and I don't know I don't know how you feel about it, so I have no idea what's coming at me. But one of the things that I see, the problem in the school is the divorce rate. And especially here in Long Island, what I see in court is that we minimize the role of one parent, usually the father, and those are the kids that have problems in school. I don't think it's with testing, because I don't see a direct correlation between these divorces and the testing usually. I see it in behavioral problems and just acting, and just, I just really see it as a big problem in our education system, not having the two parents or having they get divorced. Listen, people have got divorced for years, but parents had the more share of a role. And we go to court here, we totally push one parent out, and now usually the father sees their kid for dinner on Wednesday night and every other weekend. And sure. That cannot be good. I certainly don't think it's good for the violence. We see all this violence. I think 70 to 80% of people in jail are from fatherless homes. Yeah. Do you see a correlation that that's a problem with kids in the school?
Well, what I do see, and I know this because I speak with principals often about this, is custody issues that surface when it comes to pick up and drop off at the schools.
Sure.
And we have to almost in some way become attorneys in some way and to try to interpret what these documents say, because parent X says this, parent Y says that, and then the child's in the middle.
How sad is that?
It's really
horrible.
Difficult. So you have principals, you have assistant principals that are caught in between, and the child sees this. And I have to say there has certainly been an uptick in these types of situations over the past 5 to 6 years that I've seen, and that has a major influence on kids. And if you think that a child, regardless, of what happens at home, if there's turmoil at home and they don't have the ability to recalibrate and to be grounded when they come to school, they're going to suffer socially, emotionally, and definitely academically.
I remember my divorce lasted about 11 years, and I remember my daughter at some point came to it and said, "Do you realize that this divorce has been going on more than half my life? How disgusting is that?" And I said, it angered me and saddened me that the courts would let this happen instead of saying, hey, you guys are going to share your kids. You don't want to pay so much money? Then be a part of your kid's life. Instead of the other way is they force you to spend less time, make you pay more money. It's just really, really screwed up. In the last minute, because I want to get this in, what are we looking for when we educate? What is your job to get a kid who's brain smart and has knowledge? Or is to turn out somebody who's going to be a great member of society and maybe cure cancer or invent something? What do you feel is your responsibility? The state may think it's something different than you do. What does Dr. Hynes think his responsibility when you get these kids in Patchogue Medford? What's your responsibility?
Well, I could tell you this: they won't be defined by a test score. So a student isn't correlated to whatever they get on a test score. I wrote it down here because these are the two things that will serve all children well. How well they adapt to situations and how creative they can be. I always love divergent thinkers. You have a problem in front of you, multiple ways to figure it out, because that's what happens in real life. You're presented with these situations, you try to figure them out. But most importantly, I want them to be just great, honest people. And that's something that you can't measure in school, but you can certainly measure once they become adults.
Right, which I'm thinking all these people who are graduating under you, and as I said, not just from reading about you, from hearing it, you're putting out students that are going to excel in life, and that's really what matters. Because when I go on job, I haven't in a long time, but when you did, and I interview people, I don't say, what was your grade in elementary school?
Right.
Did you get an 80 or 90? And a lot of times, the people who come in that are great workers and great thinkers, when you start to get to know them, they go, I sucked in school. I was bad. I had AD. If at the time, I'm sure they would have said I had ADHD or I would have been on Ritalin, And what are we numbing people? We really didn't get to everything I wanted to ask. So if people want to know, and I saw a lot about you on YouTube, where can people get more about what you're doing in the school district?
Yeah, certainly. If they visit our school district's website at pmschools.org, there's lots of information there.
pmschools.org. We'll put that in the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, pmschools.org. And if anybody, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. At Mike Hynes 5, if you follow Twitter.
Okay. And I know you're on YouTube. I saw a lot of things on YouTube.
I'm on YouTube, yeah. So I have my own YouTube channel.
Which is what?
If you type in Mike Hynes, it'll
okay.
pop
Mike
up.
Hynes, not Dr. Michael Hynes.
Nope.
Mike Hynes.
Yeah, Mike Hynes.
H-Y-N-E-S.
H-Y-N-E-S. And for me, it's about promoting a holistic approach to educating a child. It's not just their cognitive abilities; it's their ability to work well with other people and to go inward to be good people.
Great, Dr. Hynes. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your schedule to be here. I'm Gary Jacobs, and thank you for joining us here at Long Island Backstory. This is a great show. We need to do a better job with the educational system, so please share this video with your friends. And you never know who's going to see it. Maybe it'll make it up to Albany, and we can do more of what Dr. Hynes is doing in the Patchogue Medford School District.